today. It is important to understand that the borders of Israel, in fact, have never been really solved since 1948. And we have to remember that the power or the individuals that sponsored the territory, or let's say sponsored the independence of Israel, came out of a terrorist movement. I mean, it was considered as terrorist by the British, which was the Irgun. So it was a clandestine army. Now, look at the map which is on this insignia, and you see that this map is not very similar to the state of Israel. It goes a little bit beyond that. And in fact, it takes the whole of Transjordan. And this has become a standing issue with the Israeli leadership. They never wanted to define the borders, and we'll come into detail into that, because they contemplate the idea of having the other part of Palestine, because what you see here outlined in white is in fact the mandatory Palestine that were under the British. The problem is that in the early 20s, the British gave this eastern part of Palestine, they gave it to the Jordanian, or to the Jordanian monarchy, because they were expelled from Saudi Arabia and they wanted to solve this issue. And for that reason, in fact, what was left for the Israeli, or the future Israeli, and the Palestinian was just the eastern part, the western part of the mandatory Palestine. And if we go today, well, today we have this border. We'll come to this border because the border we have here is in fact an accepted border. Israel, since 1948, never defined its borders. And the idea was that they still contemplate the idea of having the Eretz Israel, which is the big Israel, which for most observers today is what is outlined in white here, which is the current state of Israel plus the Palestinian occupied territories and the Golan. That's what most, let's say, observers today want. But there is still this idea of having although the territory that extends to Jordan, and you have even extreme ultra Orthodox Jews who have in mind to have this Eretz Israel extending to Iraq and to Turkey and to Egypt. Basically, it's the places where the Jews historically in the Bible, in fact, this is the Bible.
Yeah, that's during the Solomon time right there, right?
Say again?
That's during the Solomon reign, what's in the sea, right?
Yes. So this is the whole problem of this. The Israelis still have this in mind, and therefore they never defined their borders. And what we had, so that was the territory that was proposed for partition in 1948. But after the war in 1948, you had this border. This is, I outlined it in green because it's also known internationally as the Green Line. But in fact, it has never been an official border. This is the accepted, or let's say tolerated, border of Israel today, but it has no legal basis. In fact, Israel has taken the territory, and in reality, there is absolutely no basis for the existence of Israel is legitimate because it was legitimate for the Israeli to have a territory, but this territory is not legal. And that's interesting. It's a de facto border and not a de jure border. And that's important because we have seen the various scenarios that are being contemplated by the right-wing extremists. And by the way, the Likud is derived from the Irgun so the Likud of Benjamin Netanyahu. So he is exactly in that line. And the problem is for the Palestinians today is that they cannot recognize Israel because Israel has not defined its border. So you cannot recognize a state that has no recognized borders, because then you run into the risk of recognizing a state that may claim your own territory. And that's exactly the problem we have today with the Palestinian resistance. And after the Oslo Agreement, where it was agreed upon by the two parties, the Palestinian, the Fatah of Yasser Arafat in 1999, 93, and the Israeli government, that both states would recognize each other. The Palestinians have recognized the Israeli, but the Israeli never recognized the Palestinian state. As a result, they have a kind of a blank check. And this is the problem Palestinian. And that's the reason why the Hamas, for instance, didn't accept the Oslo Agreement, because they said, well, why should we recognize Israel as long as they haven't defined any territory? And that's
so it's ironic that you have both Netanyahu and some of the Palestinians saying we don't recognize Oslo, especially